States Congress just voted overwhelmingly to protect all the little Epsteins in office who uses a taxpayer slush fund in order to settle their sexual harassment lawsuit. Did you guys know that over 17 million of taxpayer money was used in order to settle sexual harassment claims that is made against United States Congress members? So essentially our ruling class is made up of a bunch of little Jeffrey Epstein. The United States Congress voted 357 to 65 in order to protect all the little Epsteins in Congress. The United States Congress protected people like Tony Gonzalez, who had a staffer light herself on fire, killing herself after being threatened by Tony Gonzalez and being victim of his sexual harassment. And every single progressive Democrat, from AOC, from Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, all voted no on this bill in order to protect the Epstein class in Congress. Release the congressional misconduct file. The same progressives who pretend to support the Epstein victims but did nothing to release the Epstein files while a Democrat was in charge is now playing their part in protecting the Epstein class in Congress. The United States government is filled with rapists and pedophiles and those who defend them. There is no reforming this. We need to burn it all down. The EU is in full-fledged crisis mode as now they are begging Ukraine to fix a pipeline that would allow Russian gas to flow back into Europe. Remember how the EU was just bragging about how they was going to become completely independent of Russian gas in order to appease United States neocons? So yeah, apparently they're walking that back, as the war with Iran and soaring energy prices has restarted a debate over European use of Russian liquefied natural gas. It appears that the European strategy of punishing their own people and forcing them to pay more in energy prices in order to spite Russia was a horrible strategy. European leaders are absolute dipshits, man. Hungary and Slovakia is even accusing Ukraine of shutting off a crucial pipeline that feeds Russian liquefied natural gas into Europe, while Ukraine claims that a Russian strike damaged the pipeline. The EU knows that Ukraine is full of shit here, because why would Russia bomb their own pipeline that is used to sell liquefied natural gas to Europe? So not only did Vladimir Putin defeat NATO and save the Ukrainian children from the Epstein regime, he also has Europe crawling back to him and begging to buy Russian energy. What an absolute embarrassing defeat for NATO and Europe.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, welcome back. You guys know I'm always in the lab cooking. Welcome to Nick at Prime Time. I'm telling you, man, just wait until the average American realize how many United States soldiers have been snuffed out in the Middle East because of Russian intelligence. It's now confirmed that Putin and Russia is providing targeting and intelligence to Iran and providing locations to United States soldiers. So Americans are already upset at this war. You guys know, like, the majority of Americans supported the war in Iraq when it started. Like, there was this rah, we got to get the people who committed 9/11. There was this massive country rallying behind George W. Bush Jr. moment, where a time where the ruling class had a mandate. Fam, there's none of that in this conflict. Bro, there's no rally around the flag moment. Bro, there are United States troops that are being arrested for calling out this war. There's another guy. There's a Green Party candidate who's now famous for calling out the war as a veteran. Now there's another Marine who called out Congress. Fam, they're already starting off this war extremely unpopular. We are seeing Donald Trump being checkmated by Putin, who holds all the cards here now. Donald Trump's war with Iran elevated and boosted Russia even more. So we have base Vladimir Putin. You guys can't tell me shit about him. You have Vladimir Putin. He saves the Ukrainian children from the Epstein regime. And the child torturing pedophiles are so upset that Vladimir Putin saves the Ukrainian children that they fucking list him as a war criminal. And now China is providing financial support, technological support, missile and arm parts, radar systems. Russia is helping with intelligence. We're seeing the entire multipolar world. We are seeing this new BRICS alliance rise and challenge and humiliate the West. So wait till the American people realize just how awful this war has been going. Wait till the American people realize that there's more than 6 soldiers that have been killed in this war. If you believe that number is still 6, you're the kind of low IQ person the ruling class love to manipulate. Let's just say that. They said there have been 6 U.S. soldiers dead for this entire week as U.S. bases are being utterly dismantled. You guys know that in Spain, in Germany, in Europe, that they're reporting around 500 dead United States soldiers. So how long can the media lie to the American people about the cost of this war? Now Donald Trump is floating the idea of sending ground troops in. And the Iranian foreign minister, they're like, bro, we wish you motherfuckers would. If you guys come in Iran, you guys will not be leaving. So this war is already having massive effects on the global economy. You have the Gulf states that are ripping Trump a new one for starting this war and starting this conflict. You had the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. They're now thinking about ripping up United States contracts. Fam, you have Iran and Putin that's on the front line battling the empire, dismantling the United States empire and their assets in the Middle East that will never come back. Bro, those bases are gone. Like, this is forever lost technology by the West, forever lost influence by the West. In Russia, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping is with Iran every step of the way. They're like, don't worry, we got you, homie. We got you, homie. And it's Donald Trump is in such a bad position that EU countries who he put pressure on is now begging to get Russian gas. We covered this on our last stream. But now there's been like a hilarious update to the story. Not only are EU countries begging to get Russian gas, they are demanding Ukraine to fix a pipeline that they bombed. They bombed a crucial pipeline, blamed it on Russia, and Europe and the West didn't give a shit for a very long time. And now they're like, hey, man, we kind of need you guys to turn this damn gas pump on because Donald Trump's decision to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel is hurting all of us, including United States allies. So then Friedrich Merz and the EU, after talking all this shit, they was like, we're going to be completely dependent on Russian energy. There's going to be a new future for the EU where we define our fate. And after talking all this shit, the war with Iran popped off. They realized that there's a global energy crisis now. The Straits of Hormuz is blocked off, and Iran is not allowing anyone to get any oil going through that except Russia and China. And on top of all of that, as if this is coordinated, you have Vladimir Putin that's like, hey, man, we about to cut Europe and all the European countries off who support the United States aggression against Iran. Now you got Friedrich Merz in Germany after talking all this shit. Guess that's going to be a common theme from the West. After talking all that shit, now Friedrich Merz like, I think it will be a bad thing if this war with Iran turns into a protracted, never-ending war. Oh, now you're saying that because you guys now realize that your energy was just cut off. Where's that? I had it. Here it is. Like, I just saw it earlier today. Look at this. Bro, this is how you know you're cooked, bro. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz warned the United States and Israel against waging an endless war against Iran that would lead to disintegration of the whole Middle Eastern state, a new migration crisis in Europe, and lasting economic damage. Hey, fam, so the dipshits in NATO are now realizing how catastrophic this war with Iran is, and how the United States is the biggest spreader of terrorism in the world, the biggest spreader of economic terrorism in the world. So who has the cards here? Putin has the cards here, because Putin's like, hey man, fuck you guys. You guys talking all that shit. You didn't want Russian gas, so guess what? I'm gonna cut you off myself. Since you guys are having a hard time waning yourself off of Russian energy, let me help you guys out here. Let me cut it off from the source. Putin threatens to stop gas supplies to EU amid war in Iran. Putin threatens shutting off Russian gas supplies to Europe. So, fam, do you guys see what's going on here? Do you guys see how Putin, Iran, Xi Jinping, and China, they just been in the lab cooking and waiting until the United States fucked up? So Putin did his part. I don't think a lot of people realize the game they just played and how historians will be analyzing the chess moves of Xi Jinping, Putin, in the Iranian government for generations to come, because it was Putin that was like, hey man, let me start this special military operation so I can help demilitarize the West. And then after we demilitarize the West, we're going to make it so the United States allies are begging for United States oil. So Russia is in such a strong position now that the United States are forced to lift sanctions on Russia. Now, I really need to pay attention here. This is how you know Donald Trump is cooked. So Putin, in his war against NATO, he demilitarizes the West and put the West in a position where they are low on interceptors, they are low on missiles, and they are low on munitions in general. So Iran fires off all their cheap shit, all their old shit, all their old drones, and now the West use so many Tomahawks. They use 5 years worth of Tomahawks in 6 days. Israel, their interceptors are running low. The Gulf states are complaining because the United States abandoned them because they can't defend the Gulf states, which completely lifts the aura of invincibility of people who side with the empire. This is decolonizing the Middle East, not only physically, but mentally in the mind, where people realize that if you're in the UAE, if you're in Qatar, you're not protected because you got United States bases. And that's what Medvedev is saying. That's what Russia is saying. They're like, hey, man, how are those bases going in the Middle East for you guys right now? You guys see how they are decolonizing the Middle East, weakening the U.S. empire, not only materially, but psychologically as well? So think about what this means. We have Donald Trump that's allowing allies like India, and they are open to Europe buying and accepting Russian gas. What does that mean? That means the Trump administration is essentially lifting sanctions on Russia and allowing their allies to fund Russia when Russia is funding and providing intelligence to Iran. So Donald Trump, that fucking genius, is essentially funding the operation that is leading to his own soldiers being snuffed out. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? So by lifting Russian sanctions like he is doing and allowing India to fund Russia in their operations when Russia is providing intelligence and financial support to Iran, Donald Trump is indirectly funding the slaughter of his own troops. Bro, can you imagine how fucking cooked you are? Do you guys realize how much Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping is toying with this stupid orange motherfucker on the global stage? How they're making Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth. The only thing they can do is lash out in barbarism, my friends. They murdered over 1,300 Iranians, including around 300 children. They are carpet bombing Tehran. The only thing they can do, for example, you guys know they bombed 6 schools, not just that one. They bombed 6, fam, in less than a week. Does that seem like a side that's confident that they have a strategy to win? Or is that a side that's just lashing out in a temper tantrum? And Americans are so dumb, they look at the amount of suffering that their side inflicts on the other, and they're like, hey, look how much suffering we're inflicting. The other side not inflicting that much suffering. Isn't then ironically they try to sell the other side as the evil ones. They try to sell Iran as a terrorist state. They try to sell Russia as a terrorist state. When they're destroying you guys economically, militarily, they're following the rules of engagement while you guys just going after children, bombing schools, and while you're still losing the conflict, while you're still not accomplishing your objectives. Oh man, I'm glad we're gonna have Zoya join us later and break down your chats. I was about to read it, but I'm gonna wait till Zoya joins us. I'll address this one, I guess. Yeah, me and Rome, we are gonna rebuild RBN as an exclusively communist organization, and we have many plans in development. The RBN channel is on hiatus right now, but it's me and Rome. We're gonna have people write for RBN. We're gonna start a new show with comrades on the RBN channel. We have a lot of plans, but there are a lot of business we got handled on the first part. I have nothing against Sabby. I wish Sabby was the best. She's killing the game. But it's time for me and Rome, we're gonna rebuild RBN the way it should have been built in the first place. So just to address that super chat. So let's continue here. Because I've been in awe watching this, and there's still a lot of people who haven't really absorbed what's going on and how much the global resistance against the Epstein regime have put the West and Trump in such a horrific position. They demilitarized themselves in Ukraine. Putin demilitarized NATO. He defeated NATO in Ukraine to the point where they can't even promise to provide defense for Gulf states, which is a major tactical defeat by the West, because now they lost the support and they lost the security of, well, the Gulf state lost the security of the United States. Now they're lashing out against Trump. They tearing up contracts. We're going to get that here very soon. Here, Che Boyle's reporting on this. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We'll get to that here very soon. You guys see, I got a lot prepared. We also have a fantastic guest join us, Alex McKay. So they will be joining us here later from the Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao Institute. They've been doing a lot of writing about the soaring energy prices. So I'm sure my guest has a lot to say on this too. So let's see how much I can cover before I get here. I got a lot prepared. You guys know I'm always in the lab cooking. Got a hotspot video that just released today. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. I'm very happy because we are a very modest channel on YouTube, but we are growing pretty steadily. So I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the super chats we're getting. I put a lot of work. I put a lot of effort in these shows. So I appreciate everyone who support my labor. So I appreciate you guys. Oh yeah, maybe I'm gonna make a set one day. Like once we build our Patreon up, we're still a small channel, man. I'm still, unlike what Affinity and some other people who believe I live in like this luxury apartment. I show you guys I live in a small little box of an apartment. So as our show grows, like bro, we gotta stay humble. We're still under 10K. Like once we hit 50K, 100K, once we get that savvy viewership, you know what I mean? Then we can start building sets. But for now, we just gotta be humble. You know what I mean? But let's continue our coverage. I'm gonna have fun reading some chats with Zoya later. So Russia has announced it will start redirecting gas supplies from Europe to friendly countries. So what do you guys think this is gonna do politically to the pressure on Donald Trump by his own allies? Because the UAE is already blasting Trump. Now, I got that here somewhere in this damn outline, this damn show I'm gonna do for you guys today. The UAE blasting Trump. The Gulf states are kind of done. So not only are the Gulf states being dragged away from the West, Russia is doing this in coordination with Iran to maximize pressure against the West. It's a fantastic move. And this is one of the reasons why the Trump administration and everyone in the West, they should be panicking. Let me refresh this page here. I covered this, how the U.S. easing sanctions on the Russian oil. Trump is essentially going to fund the country that is providing intelligence that is used to murder United States soldiers. To me, this is the ultimate form of humiliation. It's also humiliation for the Indian people, and this is what Moody is responsible for. The fact that you guys have to ask for permission from your daddy Trump in the United States. Come on, bro. But once again, that's Modi's fault for embarrassing the Indian people like that. The fact that you guys even had to ask for that permission is embarrassing. Here's a clip where they announced it, and like, to me, I can just see the defeat in this guy, Scott Bessent. Watching corporate media be slow to report on all these things that I've been reporting on and telling you guys, it makes me satisfied. Like, I may not have the big audience, but I do my best to keep you guys informed. What I am telling you guys, I'm going to show you guys some examples of this. The corporate media is just now getting to. The corporate media is just now realizing that this is gonna be a massive energy crisis. You have Fox guests like Laura Ingraham that is saying that the United States has to apologize after slaughtering 160 school children. You have Michael McFaul, the war criminal NATO supporter. He was like, hey, man, I think that's murdering all those school children in Iran. This is horrible. So, fam, the dam is breaking. And the corporate media will continue to be behind. The American people are being misled because, yes, we are amazing at causing maximum damage, and we are a great terrorist state, but we are getting checkmated all over the chessboard regarding this war. And this is exactly why the Pentagon was warning us against starting it. Now you have the UAE, you have all these analysis that is warning a complete global economic meltdown for United States allies, because China and Russia and Iran is going to provide energy support for BRICS countries and countries who are not supportive of the Zionist Epstein regime's assault against the Iranian people. So let's play this, and then I still got a lot of cover. We have a guest join us as well. I'm sure he's gonna be great. The first time I'm chatting to Alex McKay. So let's see how much more I can cover before our guests get here.
The Indians had been very good actors. We had asked them to stop buying sanctioned Russian oil this fall. They did. They were going to substitute it with U.S. oil, but to ease the temporary gap of oil around the world, we have given them permission to accept the Russian oil. We may unsanction other Russian oil. You know, the other thing Treasury can do here, Larry, is there are hundreds of millions of barrels of sanctioned crude on the water. And in essence, by unsanctioning them, Treasury can create supply. And you know, we are looking at that. We're going to keep a cadence of announcing measures to bring relief to the market during this conflict. And Larry,
so that's essentially the Trump administration admitting they fucked up. The fact that they even have to do this, that they are going to be ones single-handedly responsible for tanking energy costs. So they have to lift sanctions they have on Russia. They had to give up their strategy that they've been working on for years to defund the Putin war machine. Now they're going to fund Putin even more, and they're going to fund the intelligence assault on United States troops. So this is a bad look. And this is Russia doing everything that they claim that they are able to in order to make the United States Israeli effort against Iran impossible. So here's Lavrov. This is the quote that was heard around the world, where Russia made their intentions 100% clear that they're here to fuck up the United States and Israel for attacking Iran. And they're not going to do it in an all-out bombs ablazing, you know, the Western style of waging war. That's why a lot of Western analysts, a lot of propagandists, they were saying, why isn't Russia and China doing anything? Fam, they're not moving in the brain dead way that you guys that you fucking barbarians move. They're just moving very calculated, and they are checkmating you motherfuckers every single step of the way. So here's Lavrov and the quote heard around the world where Russia pledged solidarity with the Iranian people. And now you have liberals and Democrats freaking out about this. Russiagate is restarting. They're demanding answers from the Trump administration on what they're going to do with Russia for helping the Iranian people defend themselves against the Epstein assault. Anyway, let's play the quote.
Our strategic partners, and we'll continue to maintain dialogue with these countries, and we'll do our best to, including with other countries of the international community, in the United Nations Security Council, and the United Nations General Assembly. We'll do everything to create an atmosphere that will make this operation impossible.
So that's the quote. We're going to do everything we can to create an atmosphere that will make this operation by the United States and Israel impossible. Here, Dmitry Medvedev, one of the best Russian shit talkers. Like, there are a lot of Russian shit talkers who they was banned from social media. X brought a lot of people back. They're shadow banned. Good luck finding this guy's account, by the way. He's shadow banned because there's these Russian propagandists who just be talking shit. Like Dmitry Medvedev, he's known as like Putin's shit talker, the guy who speaks English and exposes the West to their faces. So I think this is a banger from him, and he's been on fire. Dmitry Medvedev, he's been in the lab cooking ever since the Epstein files was released. Honestly, ever since the start of the Ukraine war, to be honest. But he's really, he's the Russian shit talker. Yeah, Dmitry Medvedev. The Gulf, and this is what he says here. The Gulf Arab countries led American bases into their territory. Naively, they expected protection from them like hell. The U.S. just uses them while protecting only one country. Think long and hard about whether you really need these U.S. bases. They're not protection, they're a threat. And and a lot of these countries are realizing this too now. They're realizing this. I gotta show you guys a statement before I run out of time. But here's the UAE statement on Trump's war. And they're not feeling this shit, fam. They're realizing that it was used as pawns. We have our guest. I'm gonna bring our guest in here very soon. Your Excellency President Donald Trump. A direct question. Who gave you the authority to drag our region into war with Iran? And what basis do you make this dangerous decision? Did you calculate the collateral damage before pulling the trigger? And did you consider the first to suffer from this escalation will be the countries in the region? The people of this region have the right to ask as well. Was this your decision alone? Or did it come as a result of pressure from Netanyahu and his government? So, friend, the Muslim Zionists in the UAE are just now realizing the Christian Zionists don't give a damn about them. You have placed the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Arab countries at the heart of danger they did not choose. Thank God we are strong and capable of defending ourselves. Citation needed. You guys are not doing a good job at that, by the way. Especially consider how measured Iran has been, going after U.S. bases and installations that you guys chose to have for some reason. And we have armies and defenses that protect our homelands. But the question remains, who gave you permission to turn our region into a battlefield? This is where we talk about how the funding proposals they about to cancel. Bro, they're furious at this massive failure of the Trump administration. But before I continue, let's bring our guests in. There's still a lot to cover here, but I have to get the analysis of our esteemed guests. They're from, I want to make sure I get this right, the Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao Institute. What a base name. We have Alex McKay, researcher, reporter, geopolitical analyst. Appreciate you joining us. I think this is the first time we had a chance to speak. Great to meet you. glad to have you on our channel. I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on this conflict. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for the invitation. Always good to speak to Americans who haven't fallen into the trap laid by the DSA.
Yeah, you would never in a million years catch me repeating a CIA talking point. Never. I'm not saying I'm always right, but you guys would never in a million years ever catch me repeating some shit the CIA says. So I was giving my analysis on what's been going on. I was explaining to the audience how Russia is providing intelligence that is used to target United States soldiers, and the Trump administration in the West is definitely lying about the amount of soldiers that have been killed thus far in this war. And I personally believe this has been a disaster of a conflict by the Trump administration. Just kind of some things I've been covering for the first 30 minutes. I want to get your thoughts just to get us warmed up to introduce you in the show. How do you think this is going for the United States and the West? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment? I believe this has been a horrible adventure for the United States. Once again, thank you for joining us for the first time, Alexander. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Well, thanks, Nick. I think you're right. It's a disaster, and you can tell that by the way that all the other bourgeois creeps in the United States political system are looking very scared. Like I saw Senator Warren come out of a briefing the other day looking like distinctly pale. Now, all these people had stood up at Trump's ridiculous, very long State of the Union address the other day, and all applauded when he bloviated away about how great the military was and how he was going to lead a new wave of essentially colonization attempts following on from Secretary Rubio's speech in Munich, where he promised to renew colonialism. And Trump was echoing that in his own way, and the Democrats were all stood there applauding him. Then he starts this war, and then he takes the leading, I think it's the Gang of 8 senators into the briefing room, and they all come out looking terrified and looking like they've been seen a vision of their own death. And there's a reason for that, because Iran has exposed in less than a week just how fragile not just the US, but the British and all the other imperialist nations' hold on West Asia really is. And it's very fragile, because let's just look what Iran has done in a few days. Knocked out some very, very expensive and borderline irreplaceable US radar systems, which seems to have rendered much of the US Air Force, shall we say, almost blind, which is why they keep getting shot down. The US Air Force has lost more aircraft in the last week than they had done since the days of the Vietnam War, I believe. So they didn't even lose that many in the invasion of Iraq or the Gulf War of 1991. So clearly Iran has prepared for this for decades. I mean, I think we should emphasize, and I'm sure your audience is aware of it, but the war on Iran didn't start last week. It started 47 years ago. As soon as Iran dared to get rid of the Shah and that gang of torturers who now seem to reside in London, New York, and Los Angeles, keep running into them at various places, very unpleasant collection of characters, the sort of Pahlavish Shah-supporting Iranians. But as soon as they got rid of them, the US and Britain put a target on Iran. They first got, very unfortunately for Iraqis, Saddam Hussein and the Ba'athist government to attack Iran. In that war, the US and Britain supplied every form of munitions, weaponry, and of course, the precursors to make the notorious chemical weapons that Donald Rumsfeld would later claim were a dire threat to the US. Well, you should know, we sold them to you, you know. But they have the aim of that war, and the reason why the US and the British and the French and the Germans supplied Iraq was to try and destroy Iran and strangle the Islamic Revolution in the cradle, so to speak. And that failed. It didn't work. Iran survived. They then tried the hybrid war: sanctions, color revolutions, assassinations, terrorist bombing campaigns done by Mossad, CIA, MI6, and other actors who are on the payroll of those agencies. Iran has survived that. And as the foreign minister for Iran, Abbas Araghchi, said, they've been studying US defeats for many years. and have been building themselves up to the point where they were going to need to have this fight, because there were people in Iran who maintained the revolutionary traditions, who knew that in the end, the US and the rest of the imperialist nations would come for them and try and destroy all the real social, economic, technological, and scientific progress they've made since 1979. It's worth just emphasizing that before 79, Iran was a very backward place run by what I refer to as a stinking bunch of compradors who were selling the nation into servitude of the US and the British. And that is the crime for which Iran has been punished for 47 years by the US and British ruling classes. And that's the reason for this war. They want to do to Iran what's now been done to Syria, which is to destroy its economy, destroy its scientific, technological, and industrial bases, drive its people into borderline slavery or out of the country entirely into exile through migration, and have it run by a bunch of CIA, Mossad, and MI6 stooges. That's what the future would hold for Iranians if this war goes the way of the United States. But the Iranians are very well aware of the consequences of a defeat, and that's why you're seeing a massive rallying round in terms of like a genuinely patriotic movement to defend the country, a willingness to accept the sacrifices that the imperialist powers will impose on them, because imperialism is waging war in Iran the same way it always wages war, whether it's Korea, the French in Algeria, the US in Vietnam, the British anywhere. It's kill huge numbers of civilians, try to starve the population, try to kill large numbers of people until the will to fight of the oppressed population is broken. But it doesn't work. When people are organized, when they are educated, when they know very well that whatever problems they might have with the Iranian state, it is at least their state. It is at least something which is Iranian. It is not something which was created by Britain and America for their own purposes. And so they will fight, and they will, I'm sure, prevail, because they know how to beat the United States, and they know the United States is, as the great Chairman Mao once said, it is a paper tiger. And the fundamental weakness of the United States and Britain is that they cannot ask their populations to fight. They can't. Well, they could, but it wouldn't go very well for them. Because if they try, I mean, you're in the United States, Nick, you know this situation there far better than me, but in British terms, if Keir Starmer turned around tomorrow and says, I want every man between the age of 18 and 45 is getting called up to go fight in Iran, no one would go. You would see a revolt in this country like that, because there's a reason why they got rid of the draft. In our case, in the early 60s, in your case, in the mid 70s after the Vietnam War defeat. It's because if you stick a whole bunch of poor people in an army to get commanded by a bunch of rich psychopaths to defend the shareholders of BAE Systems and Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Halliburton, well, that bunch of poor guys is going to turn the weapons around pretty quickly when they've seen all their friends die horribly, just as loads of American soldiers did in Vietnam. And they know that. The ruling class knows that. But now they're in a position where they're desperate. The long crisis that's afflicted imperialism since at least 2008 has never gone away. The US and British and Western European economies have been declining for years. They are losing out to China and Russia in terms of nations that want to trade with them. Because who would want to trade with Britain or the US? You just put a gun to your head and say, pay up, you know? So this is a mark of desperation. It will end in their defeat. And I am absolutely certain that it will end in the long-term objective of great Arab revolutionaries, which is that they will push Britain and the United States out of that region fully. And after that, the Zionist state won't survive too long, because without the US to pay all its bills and give it all its guns and attack anybody who dares raise a fist against the Zionist entity, that entity will go. And all those Zionists who are so passionate about the Jewish state will suddenly find that other passport in the bottom drawer of their dressing table, and suddenly get on a plane back to Britain, the United States, or any country in Europe. So I think this is a time where we as revolutionaries in the West should be optimistic and should be uncompromising in putting forward our point of view, which is that, and to go back to my comment about the wretched social democrats in your country and mine, like we should be unapologetic in saying to them that you've had like 100 years of what Lenin used to refer to as social chauvinism you've led the working class down a complete dead end. It's time for you to get the hell out of the way because we've no more time for this.
You would think they would be more humbled after having a lifetime of defeat. And you would think they would at least reanalyze their ideology on why serving as the moderate wing of capitalism and fascism is not a proper path to deliver liberation to the working class. Just demanding a piece of the pie from the empire instead of seizing the means of production itself. Why that's a general waste of time for the left, and that's what we're trying to change. I'm trying to make the left more tanky in a way rejecting CIA suitable left narratives. Like for example, like if you listen to like Zoran Mamdani, Dr. Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West was condemning the Iranian government for slaughtering thousands of people. So it's always wild how these people always repeat state narratives. But back to this, I want to show you guys how they're definitely hiding the amount of U.S. soldiers who died thus far. Like we showed you guys on last show how they're hiring people who professionally will sort through the things of dead soldiers, which is a weird position to hire if only 6 soldiers died. And it's not a good sign that you have Donald Trump that is giving speeches. Well, he's like, yeah, some United States soldiers are going to die for Israel. Just is what it is. That's what it is. It's not a good sign when the president is openly admitting that. And then you got our friends at DD Geopolitics. They've been in the lab cooking. This is something else that's alarming, that the largest United States military hospital suspended its labor and delivery services until further notice. A memo that was dated just a few days ago. The suspension prioritizes the hospital's primary objective of treating combat injuries. Interesting. Amid the escalating U.S.-Iran conflict in the Middle East. So this, if I'm reading this right, this hospital specializes in combat injuries. And they had to go in suspension mode so they can focus on the overwhelming injuries that are being reported by United States soldiers. And this is because Russia is providing intelligence and targeting of United States soldiers in the Middle East. This is just an example of one Democrats reporting, melting down on the reporting. I was just sharing how Russia is playing a big part in helping Iran here. Let's play this clip because this is the corporate media just now catching up on this, and they're reporting on this, on the fact that Trump is being checkmated here. Let's play this clip first. I'm gonna get a reaction.
Having me.
I wanted to start you off this afternoon because we have confirmed reports from U.S. officials that Russia is providing intelligence to Iran to help it target U.S. assets in the region. I'm sure this is something that does not please the president whatsoever. Has he spoken to Putin about it?
Well, look, I'll leave that to the president to answer himself. But what I will tell you, John, we don't comment on intelligence reports that are leaked to the press. Whether or not this happened, frankly, it does not really matter because President Trump and the United States military are estimating the rogue Iranian terrorist regime.
Do anyone believe that, Cope? And I want to give a reaction to this because Democrats are already melting down about this. They're starting Russiagate. Like, where are we on 5.0, 6.0? So they escalated this again. Secretary, you need to apologize for your ludicrous statement. Why won't you condemn Russia for helping Iran? So, Alan, please feel free to chime in. I know you want to chime in.
Well, what the hell does the United States government expect the Russians to do? They've been running Ukrainian intelligence services for 12 years now, since the coup in 2014. Even the New York Times ran a story several months ago admitting that the CIA runs intelligence operations in Ukraine with the specific purpose of penetrating into Russia because of course Ukrainians are all Russian speakers and can blend in very easily. That's why that's why all these assassination attempts and real, for both successful and failed, on Russian senior military figures come from. It's the CIA and MI6 running this kind of operation for the specific purposes of committing acts of terror in Russia. So the CIA has been helping to kill Russian military men, Russian political figures for over a decade, and arguably even longer, because as Putin himself has claimed repeatedly, that the CIA and MI6 were actually behind or heavily involved in the Chechen rebellion of the 90s, which resulted in a long war and then an even longer terrorism campaign inside Russia itself. Putin has persistently claimed that he took evidence of this to George W. Bush 20 years ago, put it on Bush's desk, who claimed he didn't know anything about it. And I think for once, Bush was probably telling the truth, because most presidents don't know what the hell the CIA is up to most of the time. The more intelligent ones don't bother to ask because they know they won't be told. And if they ask too much, well, you know what happens to those who ask too many questions of the Central Intelligence Agency. In the case of Mr. Kennedy, they end up without a head. In the case of Mr. Nixon, without a career. The nerve of the, like, Ted Lieu, who I'm familiar with for being this sort of ludicrous Russiagate hysteric, going on TV every 5 seconds saying the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. Well, he's also an enthusiastic backer of the Ukraine war. So in the end, what's the old phrase? You reap what you sow. You, for decades, the US government put billions of dollars into developing Ukraine as a proxy force to kill as many Russians as possible. And so now you have reached a situation where the Russians are in a situation where they can lend their very significant technological and intelligence assistance to Iran. And also the Chinese are doing similar, it would seem, in order that they can essentially drive America and Britain out of the Middle East. And that's that. Well, why are you surprised? The fact that Ted Lieu is getting his, his trousers in a twist about this is like ridiculous, considering that what the US has done is admitted. It's on the record. It's even in American newspapers what the CIA has done to Russia over and over and over again. So why wouldn't they take the opportunity to do exactly the same thing? And frankly, given that the supposed negotiations over the Ukraine war are not only going nowhere, but as they were going on, the US and Britain appear to have sponsored a very genuine attempt by Ukraine to kill Putin himself with the drone attack on his residence a few months ago. Well, again, why would the Russians do anything else? Why do these ludicrous American politicians and British politicians think that they can continually commit crimes all over the world, but no one is ever allowed to shoot back? No one, not the working class in the United States, and not anybody else. You've got to take being punched in the face over and over again and say, yes, sir, thank you. I salute your supremacy. It's like these people are ludicrous.
Exactly. When has Putin blown up and killed over 100 school children in Ukraine? You guys, you realize they murdered like more Iranian children in 1 week than Putin has in 4 years in Ukraine. They had to make up some bullshit war crime charge on Putin. They're like, he kidnapped Ukrainian children. They're just mad because he saved them from the Epstein regime, which we know operated intensely in Ukraine. And we know that Epstein wanted the war in Ukraine so they can destabilize Ukraine and they can smuggle more Ukrainian children. So they're mad that Putin saved the Ukrainian children. And then fighting this war against NATO and Russia, look at how measured Putin is compared to the West. Do you guys think that Putin couldn't do the same thing to Kyiv that the West is doing to Tehran right now? He doesn't. He has a respect for human life and international law. He's not they bombed 5 schools in 1 week, fam, in Tehran. When have Putin done that? And this is why I brought it to Michael McFaul, because now this is the war crime that they committed, the largest slaughter of school children in recorded history. In that strike, you guys realize that? I was like, bro, that's in one strike they did a double tap to make sure they maximize the amount killed. You know how bad it is when you got fucking Michael McFaul guy who cheers on all NATO war crimes, the person who said he wants the United States to win in Iran. He's like, yeah, I know I can't ever root against the United States military. He said that a few days ago. But look, if we killed those Iranian girls, the evidence appears overwhelming we did. We should apologize. We're sorry. We're sorry we slaughtered all these Iranian school children after pretending that we cared about the Iranian girls. We're sorry. We committed a oopsies. And that's why I said to him, I clipped him here. I said, notice how Vladimir Putin never blew up a school, murdering over 100 kids during this 4 years of war against the NATO regime in Ukraine. And I want to add one more thing before I get your thoughts in here, because we've seen how they can murder heads of states in pinpoint precision strikes. They have informants, they have spies, they have people who infiltrate the Iranian regime that can let them know what the Ayatollah was. The same thing that happened with Maduro. So you're telling me that the West can engage in these high-level military operations where they can take out a target with pinpoint precision, but they just keep accidentally blowing up schools. Alex, did that sound believable to anyone? It's not an accident. It would be absurd for anyone to believe that would be an accident. And you know how demonic you have to be to lose Laura Ingraham? I thought it was a parody account at first. I'll read this tweet and I'll get your thoughts, Alex. Because the Western media are forced to finally respond to this. Because this story is not going away. What you guys think the media, the Chinese state media, and the Russian state media, Indian state, what do you guys think they're talking about? They're talking about this massive slaughter of school children. So here, Laura Ingraham, I was surprised when I saw this from her. But this just shows how bad things are going. If true, this is horrific news, and the U.S. military will have to address this publicly. Proximity of military compound obviously is a factor, but our weapons also have pinpoint accuracy. Investigators think American forces, well, this is her quoting the story, because now it's being reported in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, all the approved media outlets are now acknowledging the United States played a big role in this attack. But Alex, any thoughts you have before I move on? A lot to cover.
Well, this is how the imperialists wage war, and always has been. This is go back 200 years to the British in India, go back to the French, and again the French in Algeria. The French in Algeria killed 40,000 people in less than a month in 1945. That was before World War II even ended. The Algerians started rising up, and the French killed 40,000 of them in less than a month. Go back earlier than that, the Italians killed 30,000 Ethiopians in their conquest of Ethiopia back in the 1930s in less than 2 weeks. Look at the way the US fought the Korean War. It was mass extermination of the cities, extermination of the civilian population. Look at the Phoenix program in Vietnam. Literally serial killer shit done by the CIA on a civilian population. The aim is always the same. Look, they need to terrorize a population into submission quickly because they can't fight long wars, basically. And this is, and then you add into that all of the horrendous racialist assumptions and the sort of the
Is Alex still there? You guys hear our guest? I don't know if he got disconnected. Yeah, I think he froze. I'm sure he's gonna rejoin us here soon. Alex, if you can hear us, make sure you refresh the stream. But I'll continue an amazing point that Alex made, discussing how this is how the West engaged in war. We have to decolonize our mind and realize that there have been many, many Hitlers since the death of Hitler. You guys realize the West, when people in the West talk about history, they only discuss, they will invoke Godwin's law. Do you guys know what Godwin's law is? When people always invoke Nazis and Hitler whenever they talk about anything. Well, the reason why the West do that because if they talk about war criminals of the modern age, we have a ton of Hitlers. Like, look at what Henry Kissinger did to Cambodia. Look at what we did to Vietnam. Look at what the United States soldiers did in Iraq. And we've been posting a lot of information. Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life, our main account. We've been showing like the crimes of the United States soldiers. Like Gaza is like it's so disturbing to see it done in a live stream genocide like that. And Gaza will go down in history as a horrific crime against humanity. But what Alice was saying, like we this is how we engage in war. I was just continuing your point while it was gone. How we have many Hitlers. Like the way they only talk about Hitler, he committed many crimes. He was a dangerous fascist, enemy of the working class. We all know that. But they only talk about Hitler because we have many Hitlers in the modern age. I was just expounding on your point on how we waged war. But do you have any other thoughts you want to finish before you because you got up there? Go ahead, Alex.
I mean, your point is exactly correct about like fascism, which is that fascism is just an extreme manifestation of imperialism. It's imperialism in crisis. And so the ruling class dumps all of the pretense at legalism, at the idea of of liberal democracy and things like that. They just dump all of that and go for a purely terroristic dictatorship. Now that's like they're just an extreme form of ruling class rule, like a capitalist class rule. But they focus on Hitler, Mussolini, and the other fascists because. But in a very shallow way, they ignore the fact that they all came from the imperialist cultures of the time, which is that Hitler in his own book, which I wouldn't recommend reading unless you have a real sort of urge for self-flagellation because it's bloody awful. But in that, amongst all the whinging and the German romanticism, is like this consistent trend of like we must have an empire as great as the British. Now, how do we think that the British got their empire? by trickery, yes. By conning people, yes. But also by killing huge numbers of people, and then also by starving millions of people to death. Is that part of the way that Britain maintained it? Britain halved the population of Ireland inside a decade. Starved 1 million to death and drove 3 million out. The population of Ireland's never got to that same level again. It was 8 million, it dropped to 4 million. Now I think it's around about 6. That was nearly 200 years ago. They starved 4 million people to death in India between 1941 and 1943, again during World War II. You can kill somebody with starvation just as easily as you can with a bullet or a gas chamber. You can kill somebody with disease just as easily. The defense they always use is, oh, well, it was an accident. Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. These people know what they're doing. So when, the US says, oh, it was a terrible mistake that we bombed that school. No, that's the tactic. We know from Israel that that's the tactic. We know from the Gaza war that that's the tactic. Just it's a war of annihilation that they always wage. It's just that in the past, they were able to hide it. Now you get video in 2 seconds from the targeted zone. And so they can't hide it anymore. And now one of the reasons why the American ruling class gets a bit mad at Donald Trump is that he's such a criminal and such a grotesque figure that he revels in all of this stuff. Whereas what he's supposed to do is be like Obama, which is go on TV, or George W. Bush and say, oh, it's terrible. Oh, there'll be an investigation. I promise somebody will be held accountable for this. Whereas Trump just goes out and says, yeah, we did it. It's great. I demand unconditional surrender. And he's the mask has come off, and underneath is revealed to be the sort of what can only be described as the syphilitic pedophile emperor is now fully revealed.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's a fantastic breakdown of history. Now you got to see why. This is why I love being in conversations with other people who are tanky as fuck, because that's essentially rejecting the nonsense Western education that don't tell the truth about their genocides. They don't tell the truth about their crimes against humanity. That's why it doesn't surprise me that they're not telling the truth about the genocide in Gaza. They've never been honest about their crimes, so they're not going to start now. Studying the history of our enemy is a good roadmap to how they will act today. So I have a few more things we can cover on Iran, And I'm showing you guys how NATO is reacting to all this, and they're reacting just as crazy as you would imagine. But as I mentioned earlier, like in my opening monologue, one of the reasons why the West is engaging in these massive war crimes and they're carpet bombing Tehran, and the only thing they can brag about is the amount of savagery that they're engaging in. It's because they're taking tactical defeat after tactical defeat. Like, this is the result of Putin and Iran demilitarizing the military power of the West. Look, the United States will no longer be able to provide enough missiles for Gulf countries, and Ukraine has supply run low amid war with Iran. Fam, so I explained earlier how Iran was just using their old shit. They were like, let's clear our old shit out of the warehouses. And they was doing that to create this condition where they're low on munitions, low on ammunitions, and then they can bring out the new high-tech gear. So what I'm showing now, after we discussed the horrific crimes that should be acknowledged that the West is committing against the Iranian people, I'm going to show you guys why they're in panic and why I say Russia and Iran is decolonizing the Middle East. This is a pretty big deal. Just another example of what Iran is pulling off. Iran has destroyed a key $300 million radar system crucial to directing U.S. missile defense batteries in the Gulf that risk further straining the region's ability to counter future attacks. And this is before Iran even uses the good shit. Fam. So this is tech that will forever be gone in the Middle East. This is the war against the Epstein class that Iran is fighting, and our brothers and sisters in Russia realize how important this was. That's why they got in the game now. That's why Democrats, that's why Congress, that's why everyone in the Western media is melting down after these reports that Russia is directly responsible for the possible hundreds of dead. I'm very careful with numbers I use because we're in the fog of war. But I will say, if you think if there's less than 6 soldiers dead, if you still believe that, you're a clown. I'm sorry. There's way more than that. And it's going to get worse because the radar systems are being taken down. And you know how bad it is that the senators, that the war cheerleaders, they're starting to react to this stuff, Alex. They've been trying to hide this as much as they can, but now they're forced to respond to the slaughter of school children. The same way they are being forced to respond to being demilitarized in the Middle East. So here's Chris Murphy. I think he's on the Armed Service Committee, one of them war committees. He's like one of those like war cheerleaders, Democrat motherfuckers. Like, there have been some very bad developments today. You don't say. This is them acknowledging the demilitarization and the failure that Donald Trump started in the Middle East. I think I'll show this one. This is my next receipt I want to show you guys. But without China's high-res satellites, Western media would hide the devastation of U.S. bases in the Middle East. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for showing this on YouTube. But there have been plenty. Actually, this got audio. I didn't know this had audio on it. Listen to this.
Satellite imagery showing the extent of the damage.
Oh, so this is CNN acknowledging this. I actually didn't know there was audio on this. Listen to this. This is CNN acknowledging the damage of United States bases. You know how bad this has to be? If CNN is discussing this? Let's listen to this. I'll give you your thoughts on this, Alex.
Satellite imagery showing the extent of the damage to U.S. military facilities across Gulf Arab countries is starting to emerge. Part of Iran's furious response to an Israeli-American campaign that decimated its leadership. At least 9 U.S. military positions have been hit in less than 48 hours. These are relatively close targets. They're much nearer to Iran than its usual target, Israel. That proximity may give Iran's missiles and drones a better chance of hitting their targets. This is the port of Shuaiba, where just after 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, an Iranian strike set a makeshift U.S. operations center at the civilian port ablaze. 6 American service members were killed in the attack. You can see smoke rise.
Here, Cove. There's way more than that. But I think you guys get the gist. So this is CNN report on this. They found here's another one I found. Look, CNN reveals the true scale of the strike. So they're being forced to acknowledge the damage. Alex, do you have any thoughts before I continue?
Well, just to say that this whole defense system that the US and other NATO countries have built in this region, which seems to have been predicated on the idea that no one would ever shoot at them, at least in a sustained way. Because if you look at like the fact that like their interceptors are running out, the Iranians were able to knock out like several of the crucial radar systems very quickly. Radar systems, by the way, contain parts that are based on rare earth metals that are no longer available to the United States because the Chinese are exercising a restriction on rare earth metal export to the United States because they know that the US government will use them in war production. So they won't be able to replace what they've lost. And also their amazing Patriot and missile batteries and their terminal high altitude air defense system has been revealed to be useless against the Iranian missiles. So everything that the US built here was basically castles made of sand. And as soon as somebody who could actually shoot at them in a serious way stepped up, it was all over. This is like a guy who claims like should we say, an unbeaten record in the boxing ring when every single opponent he's ever fought has agreed to take a dive in the second round. And as soon as somebody actually hits him, it goes down like a ton of bricks. Because the way the US and the British like to fight their wars is that they like to have them won before they start. I give the example of the Iraq War of 20 years ago. Well, that was won before it started because the US literally went around with dollars stuffed in briefcases, paying off Iraqi generals to not fight. So that initial invasion went so quickly because they bought their way in. And then they said it was a heroic victory. And as with and then most of the time, they like to rely on air power. They like to rely on proxy forces like ISIS or Al Qaeda in Syria or others like them, or the Banderites in Ukraine. They don't like to risk their own men too much because that would generate problems at home. Well, now they've got problems because they're going to have to tell the American population that God knows how many hundreds are killed and wounded in this. And they're going to see the clown in chief on TV, like making light of it as if it's nothing. It's going to sink. Well, it'll sink Trump's presidency, thankfully. But it'll also get a lot of other American politicians in trouble because they were all in favor of this. And this shouldn't be something that should be allowed to be forgotten. The Democrats should not be allowed to pin all of this on Trump because half of this is their responsibility as well.
Not only do I hope this taints Trump presidency, which I think is a given. People talk about midterms. I think that's a given. We know the pendulum always swings. I hope this taints the entire legitimacy of the NATO alliance, of the United States military. Like, you guys see the frustration. And I know my algorithm is curated, so I keep that in mind. But there's a lot of posts from like veterans I see that are furious or upset. There's a viral TikTok I saw not too long ago. This military vet cussing Donald Trump out, and there are like so many examples of these. It'll be repetitive. I'll show you guys all of them. But this cultural revolution where there's like a complete delegitimization of the neocon agenda, of where they're like disgust with serving with the United States military. And at first, I came on hot. A lot of people were very uncomfortable with my takes on the military. Now I see a lot of people repeat it. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be serving the Epstein regime. There's nothing honorable about that. And a lot of people are repeating that because people are realizing that these young kids are being used. Their lives are being wasted fighting on behalf of Israel. And the only thing they get is a Twitter post from Bill Ackman where he writes a 3-paragraph Twitter story talking about how you made a noble sacrifice on behalf of the state of Israel. You'll get a monologue from Mark Levin who explained how your sacrifice is one of the greatest sacrifices anyone can give, fighting on behalf of greater Israel. But that's all you will get. And that's what I want to see happen. I want to see for whatever reason, the fact that people still legitimize this government and give it authority. I want to see that be completely erased. And I'm kind of seeing that happening. I'm seeing so much anger at the Trump administration. People are rejecting like the authority and mandate of the government as a whole. They see it as a pedophilic regime. At least that's my revolutionary optimism. Maybe my Coke speaking. I hope that's the case, I should say. Now I want to give you. I definitely want to give you a response to this. We have like another 15 minutes or so in our guest segment here. But I saw this clip. And I'm like, we have to discuss this with Alex. Mark Rutte, who essentially says the quiet part out loud and prove what anti-imperialists have been saying about NATO for years. All the NATO leftists, the Zoran Mamdanis, the Bernie Sanders, the AOC, the Ilhan Omar, all these people who support NATO and they consider themselves on the left, the TYT, the Majority Report. You gotta know that Sam Cedar, to this day, still denies that Banderite Nazism plays a big influence in the Ukrainian government. But he still denies it to this day. So the entire NATO left who believes that it's fucking revolutionary to support a NATO military alliance, they've just been proven once again to be completely clueless. Because what do we explain? What do people who are Marxist-Leninists explain? What do anti-imperialists? What do tankies who are always correct? What do we say? We told you guys that NATO is an imperialist instrument that is meant to project United States power. And it's glorious whenever these neocons are talking amongst each other. That's why I love watching my enemies on their corporate media silos, where they just openly share their deranged ideology, and they will just say the quiet part out loud, and they will just prove our point, Alex, all the time when they speak among each other. Like, I guess they just assume we're not watching them, so they just say shit. I'm like, bro, do you realize what you just said? And I'm gonna talk about it on my show. I don't think a lot of people realize how just deranged these people are. Let's listen to Mark Rutte admit
NATO is there
the real cause of NATO, the real goal of NATO.
NATO is there to protect us collectively against any adversary, be it Russia or whoever, or terrorism. But also it is a platform for the United States to project power on the world stage. What? Because this whole operation now, this whole campaign in Iran needs these basing requests to be positively engaged with by NATO allies, as they are doing, making use of key assets here in Europe. So the fact that we stick together, the United States and Europe and Canada, is crucial also for the success of this American-Israeli campaign.
So, Alex, he admits that NATO is used as a platform for the United States to project their political power. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, for once, somebody is telling the truth. Incidentally, by the way, Rutte is the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is one of the biggest single investors in the state of Israel, and receives record amounts of investment back from the state of Israel every year. Dutch imperialism is still very much a thing, even though most of us wouldn't think of it like that. But on the point about NATO, well, he's telling the truth there, which is NATO was founded as part of a specific set of measures designed to save the imperialist powers of Europe from internal revolution. That was what was on the cards in the middle to late 1940s in Europe, which is that the communist parties, having been the biggest and most organized resistance forces against the Nazis, were incredibly popular and could have won a number of elections and come to power almost peacefully in Italy and France, and also in places like Belgium. They were very popular as well. And had that been allowed to happen, well, there'd have been no more US imperialism anymore either, because there would have been no more imperialist powers in all of Europe. The wave of revolution would have swept away all of capitalism at the end of the 1940s. So the US had to work very hard, spend a lot of money, kill a lot of people, and rig a lot of elections in order for that not to happen. NATO is part of that. NATO is the binding together of the the imperialist powers of Europe, formerly the dominant powers of the world, in a bloc with the United States as that bloc leader, who have formed this alliance for two purposes. One, in order that the US can garrison its troops in Europe, not to protect against Soviet invasion, because a Soviet invasion was never a real threat. The Soviet records show that there was never any real plan for the military invasion of Western Europe. So that was always a lie. The real plan was always use US troops to put down a population that revolted in Western Europe. and use US and British intelligence networks to commit terrorist attacks on oppositionists in Western Europe, known now as the Operation Gladio revelations. Operation Gladio was a terrorist campaign run by a combination of the CIA, MI6, and the Italian mafia in Italy to systematically assassinate and carry out false flag attacks against the Italian Communist Party and other Italian oppositionists. And that was admitted to in the Italian parliament by a prime minister in the early 1990s. The Gladio is the Italian version. There was a version for every single different country, and it was the same. It was America, the British, and local intelligence assets and organized crime working together to systematically terrorize civilian populations in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's the purpose of NATO, to secure imperialist rule in these European countries through military occupation and the systematic exercise of terrorism. That's NATO. So when Mark Rutte says NATO is there to protect us, who's us? It's his class. It's not us. NATO is a gun pointed at our heads, all of us. And so it's him he's talking about. Him and his class are protected by NATO and always have been. And if, as you say, Nick, if this war, well, the combination of wars, really, if the destruction of the Banderite state in Ukraine and its NATO army and the defeat, if the US is driven out of the West Asian region, along with Britain and France and the other imperialist powers, well, that's the end of NATO. It's all over. It will also be the end of what's left of European imperialism, and it will lead to, finally, a reckoning inside the European countries between the ruling class and the working class here. It also mean the end of European and British imperialism, which will only be a good thing for the oppressed peoples of the world, who are already freeing themselves, by the way. So you see the alliance of Sahel states, for instance, kicking out the French. You're going to see more of that. The remains of like the French neo-colonial empire will be brought to an end. British neo-colonialism will be brought to an end. And this is a huge step forward for not just the oppressed peoples of the world, but us as well. Because like it's damaging to us, really, to sort of live in a position where our nation acts as a parasite upon the rest of the world. I mean, that doesn't really benefit us, but it leads to a rotten culture. It leads to a extreme alienation and despair amongst the working class populations of the imperialist countries. We need to free. If we want to rediscover pride in ourselves again, a sense of purpose again, then we have to free ourselves from this parasitic ruling class. And we should see the Iranians, the Russians, and the Chinese, who, as long as they are fighting against this imperialist system, well, they are our allies against our ruling class. Stalin said many years ago in the, I think it was in the foundation, his book, The Foundations of Leninism, that we in the West should see the oppressed peoples of the world as our natural allies against our own ruling class. To go back to what we were saying about the Social Democrats have spent 100 years or more telling us that our own ruling class are our allies against the oppressed peoples of the world. And so that is what we need to get rid of. We need more Stalin and less Bernie Sanders.
That was such a fantastic analysis. It's great to finally have you on the show. And we definitely got to do this again because there's so much more I want to pick your brain on. But we're going to get to the Social Democrats here very soon. Because to me, their support of NATO, there's so many things that disqualify them. You guys saw my hotspot video where I broke down how the Social Democrats, the Progressive Democrats, they voted in favor to shield the crimes of the little Epsteins in Congress. The fact that they joined the railroad strike, there's so many crimes. Their support for the Iron Dome, many things. But if you ignore every cringe thing that AOC and them did, if you took all that away, their support for NATO alone is disqualifying to me. Like their support for Ukraine is disqualifying to me. You're a socialist and you support the fascist Ukrainian regime that banned socialist parties. You know, the country that banned the right to collective bargaining rights. This is the country that Bernie Sanders has said fighting for democracy. Like, how can I trust your analysis? How can I trust you if you support an organization that exists to breed never-ending conflict? Because is anyone surprised? Maybe our last clip I'll show of NATO that is anyone surprised that Mark Rutte, the guy who called Trump his daddy, he's serving the United States empire? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, isn't he surprised that he's coming out full throat support of United States actions in Iran? Let me play this last clip, and I would love to get your final thoughts on this. And then we're going to get to the Social Democrats who support this NATO institution. Then we wrap up after that final thought. But let's listen to this last clip, and I want to get your reaction.
First of all, say that my thoughts are with the service members, the U.S. service members who made the ultimate sacrifice over the last couple of.
Thank you for all the dead Goy soldiers who died on behalf of Israel. Of course, they're going to lead with that. As you mentioned, he's an Israeli agent. That's what he cares for. He's glad that the Goys are dying. But sorry, let me play it in full. I'm sorry.
First of all, say that my thoughts are with the service members, the U.S. service members who made the ultimate sacrifice over the last couple of days. And let me also say that the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world, President Donald J. Trump, I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing, and also making sure that when it comes to logistics, access, defending key US interests in Europe and in the region, the Europeans are really stepping up.
Now do you guys see why I unapologetically root for Putin over these people? This is him. This is their Western rules-based order, Alex. After bitching and complaining about Putin fighting Nazis in Ukraine, he just then endorses the assassination of a world leader. Guys, you realize that was considered the highest taboo, just a few years ago? Now you got NATO just, it's great that he took out the Ayatollah. Like, that's insane. But sorry, Alex, I want to get your thoughts. Then I'm going to show you guys the NATO leftists and how they're talking about this issue. Alex, any final thoughts on NATO?
Well, I mean, it can't be brought to an end soon enough, to be honest. But again, the point about like Rutte and people like that is that they have no choice but to stick with Trump or any US president, because their entire existence is dependent upon the US essentially being their army, their backup everywhere in the world. The Dutch imperialism doesn't exist without being part of the US's overall imperial control. So they have to stick with the US, because if they don't stick with them, then their own ability to exploit oppressed nations will disappear, because all of these countries ultimately rely upon the threat of US military force enforcing their exploitation of like all these oppressed nations and peoples across the globe. So they will stick with the US until the ship sinks, basically. But hopefully before then, the people of the Netherlands and the rest of Europe will realize that people like Mark Rutte are playing them for fools, because when the shit hits the fan, that guy is on a private jet out of the Netherlands to probably some retirement home he's got planned out for himself in Florida. Sorry, Floridians. But you always end up with the worst people. But what we have to realize is these people don't care if our nations get turned to dust. They don't, because they've got an exit route. They've got a Swiss bank account and a villa somewhere they can run away to. They don't care if the entire nation perishes, because the only thing that matters to them is that it's a nation that is under their control. If they can't control it, they'll happily burn it down. And that goes for every nation, including the USA, whose ruling class would burn it down if they thought the US working class was going to rise up and take it off them.
So we have 5 minutes left. So I'm going to quickly squeeze this segment in, because you already interest me in your critique of social democrats. Our channel, they hear it all the time. We had to make the line in the sand clear between our ideologies, because they have this devil's bargain where, like, for example, Zoran Mamdani and his supporters, they're willing to support empire talking points and smear the enemies of the United States empire for free buses. Like that's it. Like, that's what he called it. Like, free buses. You guys are not getting a tax increase he talked about. You're not getting that. Social Democrats like, we are willing to sell everyone out in the global working class out for free fucking buses. That is all it takes for us. So let me show you guys Zoran Mamdani. There's AOC. There's so many examples. You had Dr. Cornball West, who he was on CNN. They didn't post his clip, but I gotta find it. He was repeating the talking points against Iran too. He was like, "Yeah, we all know it's good that Ayatollah was overthrown." Like, bro, this is the social democrat left. So this is what Zoran says. Yeah, I know they always gotta reaffirm the talking points of the empire.
You know, I've said before that the Iranian government has engaged in systematic repression of its own people, even killing thousands of Iranians who were seeking to express the most basic forms of dissent.
You guys realize that nothing he says after this matters anymore? The empire got the soundbite. They got the propaganda they need. Nothing you say after this matters, because they always try to face turn after this. I'm going to repeat the empire talking points, but let me play it in full and I get your reaction. But to me, my reaction is nothing he says after this matters.
In systematic repression of its own people, even killing thousands of Iranians who were seeking to express the most basic forms of dissent earlier this year. It is a brutal government. And I've also said that while I may be a young mayor, I am old enough to remember the devastating consequences of our country pursuing a war with the intent of regime change in that very same region not that many years ago.
Oh, how fucking brave of you. That's the only thing you can say. I'm not going to play this clip, but here's essentially AOC doing the same thing. Where AOC do this whole thing like, well, we can all have two thoughts at once. We can support the empire talking points, and then we can virtue signal for the people who we want votes of. But we're long time, so Alex, I want to get your final thoughts on this. And why? Let me frame like this. The last question: why do social democrats and these democratic socialist types? Why do they always buy into the talking points of the CIA? Like, who do they get their information from on these global topics? What's your final thoughts on this, Alex?
Well, I think that they have a devil's bargain, which is that you don't have a political career in the Democratic Party unless you're prepared to rabidly support U.S. imperialism, which is what he's doing now. I mean, Zoran Mamdani, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't he a Shia Muslim? Isn't that like the variation of Islam that he follows?
He's a Muslim Zionist. he's a definition of a Muslim Zionist.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, he's openly, like, he doesn't even bother to condemn the assassination of a very senior Muslim religious figure. Like, we can only assume then, because he mumbled some generic opposition at the end, but he's actually in favor of regime change in Iran, just as AOC is, just as Bernie Sanders is. Why? Is it because they're so concerned with the poor and oppressed of Iran? No, it's because on some level, even if they don't fully understand it, they know that if the US prevails in this war, which the US won't, but if they were to, that there will be loot to be had. And the entire basis of social democratic politics is, well, if the imperialists get to loot huge areas of the world, then we might get free buses, or we might get like New Yorkers might get a free subway ride on a Tuesday or something like that. That's the basis of their politics, though. Like, that for a few crumbs from the imperialists' table, they are prepared to support the deaths of millions. That's it. That is the basis of their politics, which is why Joseph Stalin was so correct when he said that social democracy is objectively the moderate wing of fascism, which is all it is. When you get down to the fundamentals, like, a crisis always reveals the essence of something, and in the crisis of war, the essence of something is revealed, and it's that American fascists and American social democrats basically have the same politics when it comes to the really important things, which is militarism, which is defense of the US as an imperialist power, which is the right of the West, led by the US, to trample all over the oppressed nations of the world. Your American fascist and your American social democrat both believe in all of those things. And really, that should be enough to just discount these people once and for all. Like the amount of people I saw online getting excited about Mamdani, it's like I've been down that road in my own country with various different politicians, including Saint Jeremy of Corbyn, who I could talk at length about all night, but I won't bore you. It's the same thing, and what it does is not only does it is a horrific and like colonialist, imperialist form of politics, but it's also a very disempowering one. Because the vision they have of the working class is that the working class sits there and passively receives some crumbs from the rich man's table. Well, we don't want the crumbs. We want the entire thing. There's an old saying from the great Irish revolutionary James Connolly, who was executed by the British after the Easter Rising. And he wrote a poem which concluded with these lines: "Our demands, most moderate, are, we only want the earth." And that's what we want. Not the crumbs. We want the entire thing. And we don't want Bernie Sanders or AOC or Zoran Mamdani saying, no, lads, don't rise up. We've got you a free Uber ride on Wednesday morning. Come on, go back to work. No more of this.
Fantastic. My man Mamdani said, "Hey guys, we don't want to wage class war against the landlord class." That man like, bro, what the fuck? Yeah, no, we're gonna negotiate with the landlords. I'm like, fam, you guys are cooked. But anyway, we can discuss this stuff all night. I got to bring you on one day so we can discuss UK politics. Like, cause I cover UK politics every once in a while. So we got to discuss that more in detail one day. Make sure you plug where they can find you. I greatly enjoyed this conversation. You brought a lot of history and theory to the discussion. I appreciate that. I think this is your account. This is what you guys was writing.
Yes.
Wrote about.
This is,
yeah.
Yeah, that's me. Mark Singleton and Stalin Maris. You can find best place to find me is on X, posting there and like streaming like 3 to 5 times a week at the moment. Also, I co-present the Decline and Fall show with the independent journalist Kit Clarenberg a couple of times a week. Yeah. He's so I do a regular show with him as well.
Yeah, I need to bring Kit back on. We had him on a few times. He's another great, well-informed guest. So, Alex, I appreciate you for coming on. Make sure you guys check out his work. I appreciate you for joining us. Follow Alex McKay at Mark's Engels, Lennon Style Mount Institute on X. Appreciate you guys for joining. I'll pop you in the back. Alex, let's bring our friend Zoya. What a week. What a week this has been. Friend Zoya's love. Zoya's life. What's popping, my friend?
What a week indeed. So much to cover. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, you've been cooking. We have that was another great guest. First time we had him on. I'm gonna take a quick break. You want to get in some super chats? I'll be right back to respond to them. Then it's been a long week. Another 90-minute geopolitics banger after banger. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys like us, follow, subscribe. I'll be right back. Zoe, take over from here. I'll be right back.
And thank you to all of you guys, not just for watching, but for recommending this great guest, because it was your recommendations that made me reach out to Alex and finally book him for the show. And he was wonderful as expected. Now let's get into your chats. Super chat that Nick already addressed. Now we have Dennis Rick. What's up, comrades? What's up, everybody? The Wombat tuned in for some Friday therapy. It is therapeutic indeed. Thank you for joining us in solidarity. We have Lady Alex. Howdy, Nick. Thank you, Lady Alex. And thank you, by the way, to all of the old school homies in the chat for supporting and staying with us for all these years. We see you. We appreciate you. Diabolical Scientist. What a great name. Thank you for streaming. Vermont Bread. Those assholes broke a U.S. Marine's arm. Yeah, Nick was talking about him earlier. He's a Green Party candidate, and his arm was broken by a senator. So we are moving into late-stage capitalism, and the contradictions and brutality are getting more emphasized than ever before. Marvin Vargas, thank you, Russia and China. Indeed, now people are finally starting to see what Russia and China have been planning for decades, knowing how Western imperialism operates. Vermont Brad, Nick, I want another collab with Rathbone. We are working.
Yeah, good timing. He comes on Wednesday or Friday next week. So Rathbone, the collab is coming. He's been killing the game. I'm a big fan of Rathbone, so I think I'm gonna try and bring him on either next Wednesday or next Friday next week. So we see it's coming.
Rathbone is a beast. He'll be streaming on Twitter for like 4 hours straight, just talking about every thought that pops into his head.
He's always in the lab looking for real. It's crazy.
Fei Lu, Iran is an ancient civilization, indeed, and a lot of ancient historical sites that belong to Iran and humanity are being bombed right now. Big Boss, I oppose USA attacking Iran. Don't get me wrong, but to make an angel out of Iran is absurd. I marked this one on purpose for us to address it. Victims of U.S. imperialism don't have to be angels, and nations can not be angels or beasts. You are trying to assign characteristics that don't apply to sovereign countries. The issue at hand is that U.S. imperialism is a criminal operation, and Iran, as a sovereign nation, has every right to defend itself. And there is definitive solidarity in the global South and amongst other victims of U.S. imperialism. And you should have solidarity with them too. Did you want to add?
I don't know what country you're from, but being an American and condemning Iran, you're so brave. You're such a hero. They're gonna be writing about you in history books forever. Like, what value does that even have? Like, you're in the West, you live in America, the most genocidal nation in modern human history that can't even hold their Jeffrey Epsteins accountable. Can't even hold their criminal ruling class accountable. Meanwhile, you're like, I condemn Iran and the Ayatollah. Like, you're so fucking brave. You're a modern civil rights icon for that. Like, the American mind never ceased to amaze me. There's like a massive amount of cope, especially like the Gen X and Boomer brain. They fail to hold their capitalist class accountable, so they live vicariously through uprisings and revolutions in other countries. So they see like color revolutions in Iran. And because they failed to hold Wall Street accountable, they failed to hold the Clintons accountable, they failed to hold the Trump regime accountable, then they're like, you know what, I'm gonna support the Iranian diaspora and we're gonna support them bombing their country because that's their way to cope with their failure to do anything about their government. So that's what a lot of Americans do. They try to sit on this throne where they are the beacon of democracy and they look down at other countries. Meanwhile, they going bankrupt without health care. Like, that's actually a slave mentality, whether you guys know it or not. To me, there's nothing wrong at all with admiring the cultures of other countries. There's a reason why the Epstein ruling class wants you to hate. They want you to judge China for this, judge Russia for that, judge Iranian culture. They feed off of that. I'm not saying that we worship and idolize these people as perfect, but what we're supposed to do as humanity, we take and we learn from each other. We help each other grow. And doing it from an American point of view, like, oh, our culture is better than your culture. I'm from a better culture than yours, and I condemn your culture. How does that further humanity? It does not. It served the interests of the empire. So that's my take to that comment as well. Thank you for your point of view, even if we disagree, but I don't understand that American mindset where you guys like condemn other countries just to feel better about yourself. Like, does that make you feel better about cop cities being built all over the country? By the fact that our cities are like shit? You feel a little bit better. Like, don't you know that in Iran they are forced to cover their hair, even though that's not true? They repeat bullshit and lies about other countries because it helps them sleep at night. Like, that's the only explanation. Zoe, do you have a better explanation? That's the only way I can explain like why Americans like they seek comfort, and that's why they get like upset when they see you dismiss and dismantle like the lies against North Korea, for example. They get uncomfortable. They get uncomfortable at the thought like Kim Jong-un is not a tyrant. You know what I mean? They get uncomfortable whenever you bring up the fact that the Chinese working class support their government. Like, what? I don't know why that is. I think it's because people are propaganda. Maybe you guys got better theories than I do, but that's why people lash out. And I decolonized my mind a long time ago. And as Marxists who understand the scientific theory of class struggle and revolution, we don't believe in utopias. We don't expect these countries to be utopia. We do expect solidarity. We do show solidarity with these countries and respect the sovereignty of these countries. And the fact that many Americans don't look at it like that is crazy to me. But please continue, Zoya.
Yeah, it's really.
Bro, Dr. West lucky I didn't do that segment on his take on Iran on CNN. Bro, I was like, bro, that was the most. He's on CNN spouting some bullshit. You know what I mean? He pounding around with Scott Jennings. You guys know Scott Jennings, that fascist who cheers on the Gaza genocide on CNN. Dr. Cornel West here. He's chucking it up with him. Chucking and jiving up with Scott Jennings for a paycheck. That's disgusting. Like you couldn't catch me in a million years chucking and jiving with Scott Jennings for a paycheck. And in order to get along with Scott Jennings, you know what he has to do? He has to condemn Hamas. He condemned Hamas for October 7th. He's like, I think this is a brutal attack. The same way I believe we got to condemn the Iranian regime. We got to stand with our Messiah brothers and sisters engaged in color revolution. Fam, he says that so he gets along with Scott Jennings on CNN. And then he condemns us in RBN like, dude, you're part of the Jimmy Dore left. Nigga, you're part of the Scott Jennings left. These people, they disgust me, man. Like, I didn't want to, like, I wish Dr. Cornel West wasn't cringe. Like, it's not like I want to go after these people. They're just fucking cringe. And once you grow out of social democracy, like, there was a time where I thought he was sounding cool. But when I grew out of that shit, and a lot of our audience is starting to grow out of it. But once you see past like their limitations and how they enabled the Western Empire, you can't unsee it. And that's something with Dr. West and just that professional managerial class as a whole, like Ro Khanna, all of them. They make me sick. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean they're traitors and they should know better. That's the thing with them. They can't claim to be as propagandized or indoctrinated as other people because they invested a lifetime in supposedly opposing imperialism. So for them not to know better, I would say it's not naivete, that they're just serving their own class interests and their own ego, unfortunately. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
And we got a super chat from True the Above All. Super sticker. Thank you so much for that. $9.99. Joseph Macy coming through again. $4.99. Iran is our new hope. Thanks, Nick. And thank you for the support.
How can you not be inspired by the fight they're waging right now against the ball-worshipping Epstein class who murdered leader after leader? I mean, they committed so many transgressions against the Iranian people. They showed so much patience. And then they killed, like, their version of the Pope, their father. Like, how can you not be inspired by their struggle, fighting against a genocidal empire who don't abide by international law? Like, you don't have to be a tanky to side with Iran. That's being pro-human. You know what I mean? But go ahead, Zoya.
And pro-international law, too. U.S. is operating criminally. Mark Puglisi, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thank you for the $2. We realize that only ML discipline will succeed. Indeed, yes, thank you. And that's true because Marxism is a science. It's a way of observing the world. That's why tankies are always right. Start reading and learning more of what the tankies are learning, and you'll be right, too.
Yeah, I'm tired of fucking revolutionary adventurism. We've been around it, Zoya. You know what I'm talking about? Like people just trying shit that they're not proven science. They're like, no, I think I know more than the people who actually engage in successful revolutions. Like for example, the Soviets who took poor peasant Russia and turned it into a fucking superpower. And Western leftists who built nothing, like, you know what, I'm gonna discount anything that Lenin wrote. I'm gonna discount anything that the people actually built actually wrote, and we're gonna engage in revolutionary inventorism. We're gonna support DSA and support progressive Democrats. We got a new strategy. We will negotiate with capitalism. That's how we do. Like, fuck revolutionary venturism. We had a lot of different open ideas that we associated before, but there's only one science that has been proven correct over and over again. People can abandon and betray the science, but the science, it does not fail. Temperature boil, revolutionary energy grows, disenchantment between the working class and the ruling class continue to grow. The ruling class continue to push. They push, the temperature boils, and then what direction does the working class go? Do they embrace Marxism and revolutionary discipline and embrace class war, or do they go down the road of fascism? They're both the options, guys. If the temperature boils too much and there's no revolutionary theory and optimism and potential, they go down the route of fascism. We've seen it happen so many times. You can argue that the West and the United States already went down that route after they embraced anti-communism. It's a science, my friend, but so please continue.
Yeah, and let's not forget America inspired Hitler. There's a home. Thank you so much for the $1.99 in solidarity. Mr. Blamo, how are you? NATO, North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. I mean, is that not their official name? I could have sworn. Big Boss, South Africa was colonized by the Dutch. Apartheid is Dutch word. Most infamous word in the world. Yes, and we should never forget that what Germany did was just turn imperialism inward. All of these European countries were looting the global South and committing these brutalities before we had live streams, like Alex McKay was pointing out. Khadija, free the world. I wanted to throw in some positive sentiments as well. Kukul Khanman. Hasta la Victoria, viva la resistencia. Yes, indeed. We need an international movement to oppose the Epstein class. The old school homie James Starks, COINTELPRO is in the people's house. Constant vigilance, constant mistrust. I wouldn't say constant mistrust, but definitely always be skeptical and build community and solidarity that you can count on. But you never know. Thomas Sankara sold out. I mean, his best friend sold out and he was shot by his best friend that grew up with him in his house. Chris H. Shit, this is a serious link up tonight. Nick Cruse and Alexander McKay. Yes.
Yeah, what a great guest. What a great guest that was. I told you guys, we always in the live cooking. We got some more stuff cooking up for you guys as well. But please continue on that.
Firepo WA, happy Friday or Saturday, whenever or wherever you are in the future. Yes, happy Friday, everybody. Chanel, Alex is great. Agreed. Anisha, great guest and stream. Thanks, Nick. James Stark, dialectical materialist analysis is what's going on here. Indeed, and it is so missing. Thank you so much from me to Nick for doing these shows and bringing more Marxist analysis into the class consciousness. Greg Stoker just said that they're getting ready to put boots on the ground for Mary Ward. I'm not sure about that, and I think we should always be cautious during the fog of war. It might happen. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, they already put it out. Donald Trump said he might consider it. It's possible. It shows that the United States realized they can't accomplish the military objective with just an air campaign, and Iran they're ready for it, and they're going to pay massively. If boots hit the ground, it'll just speed up the United States defeat. I think that would be a massive trap. The best thing that Trump could do, which he won't, because he's following the direction of Miriam Alderson and Benjamin Netanyahu, he should just wipe his hands like, oh yeah, we killed their leader, the regime would change, and people are going to uprise and just try to make a W out of it and leave. That's the only way they can get out of it. It's just pretend the shit never happened, but they're gonna continue to dig, and if they put boots on the ground, You're going to see more dead Goy soldiers in the dead Goy box. And I think Americans are going to be pissed. I don't think he can sustain that politically at all.
Yeah, strategically, it definitely would seem like a mistake, especially with Iran's mountainous terrain. They have a lot of natural protection. But Trump did lease a corridor from Azerbaijan. It kind of went under the radar and no one noticed. And that could be one possible place they would be attacking from. And there would be no other reason to lease that land corridor. So we will have to stay tuned and see and not be impatient with the fog of war to just chase all the latest headlines and guesses. Street cat munchies. These rich Epstein class are working together. Yes, of course, they have the same class interests. You're absolutely right. Mr. Charles G. Agent Zoran Mamdani. Kylie Jones. Mamdani is a Fed. Hey, you guys said it. You know, we're just reading the chats. Top JJ, Stalin proved correct again. Yes, that will never stop happening. So read up on Stalin. And we have another super chat. Thank you. This life is short. Thanks for the $4.99. Nick, thank you for supporting Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims. Now the world know what Arab have been dealing with. Love your show. Thank you so much for the support and the solidarity, of course. Last chat, Wavy McFly, your guests have gone better since you started rebuilding the new RBN. It's been like a week, guys. We've had incredible guests on for years. Please look through the library, but appreciate the encouragement. And we will always try to bring on guests that you suggest. And we're happy to have discussions with almost anybody. So feel free to tag other guests and let them know that you want to see them on the show and see Nick interview them.
All right, I think there was a banger damn near 2-hour show. So Zoya, you want to take us out tonight? You want? I'll give you last thought. And then you want to? I'll give you last word. You want to take us out?
For sure. So the first thing.
I'll see you guys next week. Take care, y'all.
First thing I want to promote is Nick's Telegram. Same handle as he is on Twitter, Socialist MMA. Please follow his Telegram. It's brand new. It has like 200 subscribers. It's just a baby Telegram, but it is really good for us to be building up these alternative platforms because YouTube doesn't like the truth. So they constantly give us strikes and pull shows, and this platform cannot be relied on. So it is really imperative that we get your help in building up a following on these other platforms so we can keep bringing you these great shows, these great guests, and this information that you will definitely not get from mainstream media. Other than that, the time has already passed since we need to be organizing our neighborhoods. So please get started today. You see, late-stage capitalism is only increasing the contradictions. The pain for the working class abroad and at home is only going to deepen, even if it's something small, like starting a community garden so you guys can have autonomous sources of food with grocery prices going up. Meet your neighbors, form tenant unions, organize at your workplaces, even if it's one person that you reach out to, and just share your anti-imperialist views and provide them with information and more resources. You're making a difference. We can't make a difference alone, but if each of us is making a small difference where we're at every single day, that is like a million drops collecting to form the ocean. So never underestimate your power. Stay strong. Love each other. Love your neighbors. Love the people, and love the struggle. Love you guys so much. Thank you.
So is love is life. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care.